Unlocking financial freedom. Cryptocurrency brings banking to every smartphone across the globe.
I think you've kind of dug into it a little bit, but what is cryptocurrency like really? Like beyond just digital money, beyond, if you had to explain that to a 10-year-old, how would you explain it?
I would say, it's trust without intermediaries. It's a global 24/7 financial system. Rules enforced by code, not people. It's just a way to conduct cross-border payments, slow and inexpensive, especially to people that have limited financial access.
This episode of The Recovery Couch is brought to you by Greg Swartz at Remax Victory and Affiliates. If you're looking to buy or sell a home, Greg brings heart, hustle, and honesty to every deal. Call Greg at 937-477-8975 today and tell him The Recovery Couch sent you.
Recovery. We focus on real, raw, unfiltered messages of truth. And today I have my good friend Dorian Rodgers, Dr. De Niro, coming on to talk to us about cryptocurrency. So let's welcome to the show, Dorian Rodgers. How you doing, brother?
Doing pretty good, man. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I know you got something you want to read to us before we get started.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, man. So, we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency today and different topics. We'll touch on a little bit of finance, economics, and just so we're clear, this content of this podcast is for educational entertainment purposes only. Nothing discussed here constitutes financial, legal, or professional advice, and the views expressed are entirely my personal opinions. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional before making any financial or investment decisions. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, thank you for reading that, man. So tell us, man, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, what's the difference? What do you like? Which one do you not like?
Yeah, so sure. So, cryptocurrency in general, we're talking about, there's cryptocurrencies and digital assets. A lot of the times they're intermingled, one and the same, a lot of people would say, but not all digital assets are cryptocurrencies per se. So, at its basic, most people know about cryptocurrency because of Bitcoin. So it's one of the first and most popular cryptocurrencies out there. One of the first ones to come out there. A lot of people think it's, get rich quick scheme. Most people know that it's a technology or a system. And it's basically digital assets that are secured by cryptography. It's a distributed ledger system, so decentralized, where your transactions are recorded on a blockchain. It's usually public, tamper-proof, or I should say tamper-resistant. So it gives you a little more security, and it's usually a lot faster than our current infrastructure. So basically, in its essence, it removes and reduces the reliance on centralized intermediaries. So yeah, that's crypto.
And then, what was your aha moment that made you start taking crypto serious?
Yeah, so I had heard about it. Obviously, at first I wanted to get rich. Can't lie. I thought, just like everybody else, hey man, people are making a lot of money with this. Let me look into it, right? So obviously I went a little bit, put some money in, lost some money, of course, which prompted me to go do more research. What's going on? Why did I lose money? What's driving the headlines? So I kind of dove into it a little bit more, and it kind of sent me on a journey down into a rabbit hole, honestly. I would say when I first realized the utility of crypto, it was when I started a business. I was a co-founder of an app back in the day, and I had developers that were out of the country. And so those developers needed to get paid. And so we were constantly we were getting invoiced. We would go to the bank, do a wire, wait a couple of days, pay a bunch of money. And I was like, man, this is massively inefficient. So I started doing some research on, options out there. And a lot of people online were saying, hey, why don't you just use Bitcoin? And I was like, what? So I'm like, okay, let me look into using this as a medium of transfer, a payment mechanism. So we did it a couple of times, and yeah, it was kind of expensive, but a lot faster and a lot less cheap than the bank sending international transfers. So that's really what got me into looking at the value of crypto or digital assets. And, from there, you kind of realize that our current systems are not built for our current times. So we have very, very old and archaic banking systems, or financial rails, you could call them. And when you work in finance and you experience these on a daily basis, you kind of understand that our money doesn't move like our internet, right? It still moves as if the internet was never invented. And so when I started reading into these currencies, these different assets and infrastructures, I started to realize that at some point, our internet of value will have to meet the internet of data. And so that's what preempted me to start diving into crypto.
Yeah, great answer, man. Explain that last piece, Dorian, if you could. What do you mean by when you say the internet of data has to meet the internet of value?
Yeah, sure. So, think of the internet or an email. You send an email, you can send it to anybody with any different email address almost instantaneously, as long as you have an internet connection. Now, before emails, we had snail mail, which is USPS. We had Pony Express before that. And with every iteration of technology made it faster and easier to receive information or data. As the internet evolved over time from dial up, it was always about speed and efficiency and how much you can send and how much you can store. There was really no value attached to that. It was always, I'm sending words or I'm sending numbers, we're never transacting in the same way.
Hence the internet of data. That's the internet of data.
That's the internet of data. Right. No value. Right. So even though in today's world, in the last 10 years, in the last 20 years, since the inception of the cell phone, after the COVID pandemic, it pretty much pushed everybody onto our smartphones. So we transacted in data and value on our smartphones now. However, the banking system and the banking infrastructure itself is still stuck in the early 1900s, right? So if I send you Zelle, there's counterparty risk. Like we see it immediately, but the banks still have to clear the transaction and settle the transaction behind the scenes, which there's risk that's taken on by banks, right? So there's all kind of reserve requirements. There's all kind of what they call nostro-vostro accounts that banks are required to have in order to basically show the other party that they can clear that transaction, which is locked up capital essentially. Right. And the reason for that is because even though we see it instantly, they still have a 2-day settlement or a 1-day settlement or a 3-day settlement, depending on where you're sending the money to and what garden you want it to go to. You send it across border, it's a little longer. Send it to a U.S. institution that's, well known, it's probably a 2-day, 1-day. So I always tell people, frame it around if you're old enough back in the day when you got a check, you would go to put the check in the bank and they would only give you so many of the funds available on the first day. And then you had to wait 2 days to get the rest of the money. Right, for the check that clears, because one bank had to talk to the other bank to make sure the money was there. Now, as the data transfer faster, now they don't have to do that because everything's instantaneous. They can talk to each other right now, but the money still has to travel through the intermediaries. So it takes time. And so with digital assets and blockchain, and the distributed ledger technology, it allows all parties to see a centralized ledger or a public ledger that's immutable, meaning there's nothing that can be deleted, right? It's transparent and it's 24/7. So if I send you money right now and you send me money, we could go look on the ledger, see the transaction recorded on the blockchain, and we know that, hey, the money's good. It's instant. It's real time, like if I sent you a text message. So when I say internet of data needs to meet the internet of value or vice versa, that's what I'm referring to, so that we can send value the same way that we send messages or data.
Yeah, dude, that's super interesting. So basically, every single smart cell phone holder has an internet of value in the palm or in their pocket at all times, while the banks are still kind of working with checking to see if the funds are available.
That's it. So the banks are still using snail mail. We're all using smartphones. So with blockchain technology, it gets integrated into institutions, integrated into enterprises. Now, the banks are using modern technology and we're using it as well. So what it ultimately does is it unlocks capital and liquidity into the system.
So what makes one or the other better when you're talking about blockchain management or electronic funds transactions?
Well, I mean, they're really one and the same. So I always say, they're very comparable. And I think it's just a sleight of tongue. So to me, the customer, like me and you, the way that we transact won't change. If the technology is done right, the user experience won't change. What will change is the way that the internal and the inner workings of the banking and financial and enterprise level systems work behind the scenes. That's what'll change. Not so much how we see it. So if I send you Zelle right now, I don't think that'll change. If I send you, if I send you $100 to Cash App or Square Cash or Venmo or whatever, we'll still get it instantly. It's just now there's no risk behind the scenes for either bank, which is a huge benefit because it unlocks all of that capital that had to be locked up previously. And that's working capital. That's capital that the bank can now lend out. That's capital that, the bank can now use for other activities. And I just think that it's a injection of liquidity into the global economy, which is obviously good.
Yeah.
So you can reduce risk. They call it lubricating the rails, if you will, removing the friction. So what you're going to get is efficiency and speed and volume.
So the X factor is the transaction behind the scenes. What happens if that transaction goes bad?
Well, it's instant, right? And so different blockchains have different mechanisms of validation. So I would say that if it does go, well, I should say when it does go bad, the frequency in which it does should be a lot lower than which we currently realize today. Right. So if there's a fat finger error at the bank, right, they have to go and reverse it, batch at the end of the day, and then you'll see it tomorrow. Whereas with blockchain, you have different mechanisms of validation. You have proof of work, proof of stake, consensus mechanism, where you have different validators that validate the accuracy of the transaction, and it will require that before the transaction can be settled on chain.
Do we know if these are humans or artificial?
Some of them have human inputs. Some of them are computers validating, right? Which pluses and minuses to both, obviously. Humans definitely can commit errors. They have limitations and capacity. Computers don't, but computers could be malicious as well. And so I think that's the importance in regulation and compliant, frameworks to ensure that we are looking out for these risks. And I think that's what's taken so long for the regulation to finally be put into place.
Dude, this is super good stuff, man. So then I think you've kind of dug into it a little bit, but what is cryptocurrency like really? Like beyond just digital money, beyond the digital transaction, if you had to explain that to a 10-year-old, how would you explain it?
Yeah, so I would say, it's trust without intermediaries. It's a global 24/7 financial system. Rules enforced by code, not people. It's just a way to conduct cross-border payments, slow and inexpensive, especially to people that have limited financial access. So we tend to look at things in a scope of the United States or through a lens of the United States. We have to realize that we are very, very fortunate to have the infrastructure and the capabilities to do the things we do with the financial system, such as having a bank account, having access to currency, right? But probably 65% or better of the world is unbanked, right? Meaning they don't have access to a bank daily. So this technology gives access to people with cell phones. Most people in the world have a cell phone. Most people in the world don't have a bank. So if we could put banks on their cell phones, which clearly there's plenty of companies and institutions that are doing that. It's just right now that the reach is very limited. And then it reduces risk, right? Counterparty and settlement risk, that 2 to 3 day settlement period, it reduces that. And it gives transparency into the financial system, which is most important, right?
Elaborate on that piece, if you would, please. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to frame that, man, is you look at COVID, for instance, right? COVID happened, Ukraine, Russia, conflict kicks off. And the first thing the U.S. does, being the reserve currency and having such a significant power over the financial system in the globe, they start sanctioning a country like Russia, right? And so looking at this strictly objectively, if you're Russia and you're trying to conduct whatever you deem necessary for your country's sovereignty. I'm not picking sides, and I'm not trying to make this a political or geopolitical thing. I'm using it as an example. If you're Russia and you are funding your military with rubles, or you're buying things with the dollars that you are getting from your business around the world, and then U.S. comes in and says, we're going to sanction you. We're going to freeze your bank accounts, right? Obviously to slow down the war in Ukraine. How do you, that just threw a monkey wrench in your entire strategy for your war. So I think having that transparency so that people can see what's going on, and then seeing what's happening behind the scenes in real time.
This episode of the Recovery Couch is brought to you by JB Davis at South Dayton Toyota. For integrity, service, and unbeatable deals, call JB and his team at 513-267-5225 and tell them the Recovery Couch sent you.
System is going to provide a lot of other opportunities, not just for the United States, but other nations as well.
So it's going to enhance global economy economically.
Yeah. I think it's going to increase liquidity, right? It's going to be more access to funding, more access to business, because obviously the money is moving faster. There's more of it, and it's more transparent. And so you don't need all the intermediaries in between us and, let's just say, India, right? We're doing trade with India. There may be 7 intermediaries in between the transaction. And that's what makes it slow and expensive.
And there's
So
more global.
get rid of that.
Yeah. No, would that mean that there's more money coming in from different geographical areas that wouldn't otherwise because of the banking system?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I say liquidity, that's sort of what I mean. That's liquidity is going to be, hey, we have this dry pipe, right? Let's turn on the flow and let's let it go. More volume, more pressure, more everything, faster.
So, like, if that pipe's coming from India, they would just turn it on when you and it.
That's it.
Good illustration.
India, yeah. I mean, there's and man, it's a very robust, and there's so many cryptocurrencies out there, man. It gets tough to start explaining what they all do. Are all of them legitimate? Most of them aren't. Most of them are gambling. It's like going to penny stocks or going to a casino and playing a slot machine, right? I think there's over 3,000 cryptocurrencies. Maybe 150 of them are like legit. And I think that's the benefit of the regulation. When the regulation comes and there's a regulatory hurdle that has to be cleared, I'm not sure if the majority of these cryptocurrencies will even try to meet the hurdle. They will probably just fold up and pop up in Barbados or something.
Fold up meaning they're
Close
cashing
up.
out. You're whatever you have invested in there is
you're done.
plummeting.
It's gone. It'd be kind of like FTX or any of the other ones, Voyager, Celsius. We're done.
Pump and dump,
right? Rug pull. See ya. Nowhere to be heard or found of anymore. Yeah, I mean, it'd be like modern day Madoff. You know what I mean? It's the wild, wild west in crypto right now, man, which is the hesitation for a lot of people to get into it. Legitimate money to get into it. You know, you're talking hedge funds, billionaires, millionaires, multimillionaires. They're very slow to take on risk. They don't need to, right? They're looking for the 8 to 15% on the majority of their money, which they can find in the stock market. And they don't want to take on the risk of making 40 or 50% and possibly a loss on the downside, total loss on the downside, because there's no protection. There's no FDIC. There's no recourse if, a crypto company's in, let's just say, the Cayman Islands, and they decide to fold up and you can't go and sue them. You can't go look for them. It's not how the international law is set up. Right. And so I think that's the reservation for a lot of people, man, is there's not enough protection right now.
So the risk with it isn't just the risk that you would have with any other investment where it's like, I'm going to invest this money and I could lose it. There's a risk of like somebody completely just pulling the rug out from under you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's you risk a total loss in crypto as it stands right now.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yeah, but I think the same is true with any investment. I mean, you can risk a total loss in real estate. You risk a total loss in the stock market. I mean, I think we've seen that in the 2008 financial crash. You know what I mean? I mean, I just think when you're talking about any asset class, man, you have to be very, very knowledgeable and understanding of what risk you're getting into.
Yeah. So let's bring this full circle to recovering from a high risk, high reward investment, and boom, Barbados yanks the rug and you're spinning upside down and coins are falling out of your pocket. What's a strategy at that point, Dorian, in a bear market, so to speak?
Yeah. So, man, I always say, like, crypto it's like it's really any investment, man. You kind of have to, before you get into it, you kind of have to know certain things, right? You want to know, how long are you willing to hold this investment? What is your overall objective or goal for the investment? What kind of risk can you handle, right? And then how is it going to apply to your tax situation? Of course, everybody's situation is different. So there's no one size fits all when you talk about these type of investments.
Second Chance Studios is a professional sound isolated recording studio in Canton, Ohio. The studio serves podcasters, recording artists, and video creators. Second Chance Studios is equipped with top tier equipment like Shure microphones and the Rodecaster Pro 2. Second Chance Studios uses Logic Pro and Adobe Premiere Pro for their editing software. The studio offers expert podcast, video, and audio engineering services. To book a session, call 740-491-0354, and that's Second Chance Studios, where quality meets purpose.
Horizon, the stock market is great. It's going to, if you invest properly and you adjust over time, you can hit your marks by 59 and a half, 65, 67, whatever that age may be. But for me, my goal is a little more aggressive. And so my strategy has to be in line with that. And so for me, I don't necessarily watch the market on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. I look at it like dollar cost averaging, just like you would do your 401k. How much can I put in the market and not have to worry about, right? Like if you're going to go to Vegas and go to the casino, you're like, okay, I got $1,000. If I lose it, I lose it. I don't need it for anything. So I'm only playing with money that I don't need in the immediate short term, right? Although it's liquid, if stuff hit the fan like it is currently right now, I think the crypto market is down almost $2 trillion in the last 40 days, right? We're talking a ton of money. So people are getting killed in the market right now. It's a bloodbath, right? But for me, my time horizon is 2040. So I had no anticipation on needing the money or taking it out of the market in 2026. Right, I might have a long-term time horizon because I understand that the nature of the industry, it needs to mature. There's certain things that need to happen before we find a place of stability. And so understanding that through education allows me to understand the risk that I'm getting into. And I think that's the most important thing. You really need to do the education to understand volatility and risk. That's the core misunderstanding in crypto. As a lot of people think it's, hey, I put 100 in a day, I get 400 out tomorrow. There have been times in the past where that's been the case, but more often than not, people are losing money in crypto because they don't have the right education to understand the dynamics of the asset class. And so I would say dollar cost averaging for me has allowed me to stay in a pretty solid position over a long period of time, just like any other investment, just like your 401k, your IRA, your stock portfolios, your ETFs. You diversify and you dollar cost average to try to average down your cost. And you anticipate that those assets will continue to go up over time. And you hope that you can beat whatever index or whatever you're following, whatever your benchmark was, you hope that you can beat it. And so I take a lot of the same traditional strategies and methods that the stock market would use. And I just apply it to crypto. So I do a ton of research on the technologies that I like, and it's worked out for me, quite frankly.
And tell us just kind of where the market's at right now. I know you just said trillions, and that's a big number. And then let's save it to get back on another episode and talk more strategy from a strategic advantage. How you would encourage somebody to approach if they were a brand new investor. So let's end this one with where's the market at now, and we'll start the next one with a strategic plan.
Yeah. So where's the market at today? It's down. Yeah. So it was, I think we almost hit an all-time high, like 4 trillion, late last year, late 2025. And now I think it's floating to like 2 point something trillion, 2.3, 2.4 trillion, maybe 2.5. Don't quote me on that. The market moves crazy. It's It's very emotional if you allow it to be. If you're looking at it daily or hourly, chasing charts and day trading, swing trading, short-term positions, it'll drive you crazy. So for me, in these markets right now, I try to check my emotions, stay in education, keep reiterating my strategy of long-term, and I just dollar cost average. I don't look at the price. I set it up all automatic. So it's like every 2 weeks, I get paid, same amount every month, every 2 weeks. Automatically divided up into a basket of, assets that I like, that I've done research on. And I just let it ride. And every 6 months, every quarter, I'll go look and see how it's performing. And a lot of the times, man, year over year, it's performed very well on average. And so I would say, man, just use very basic dollar cost averaging, stay in that top 25, top 30 by market cap, and really just do research on what you're purchasing. Don't be a blind investor, man. None of the chasing pumps, no panic selling, no overexposure. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. Don't follow social media hypes. People pumping up certain coins. Always do your own research, right? And I think if you do that with anything, man, you become more and more knowledgeable on a certain thing. You get better and better at understanding what you're looking at. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think that's sound reasoning in your approach. It gives some encouraging words. I don't want to call it advice because that's a slippery slope sometimes, but to somebody who's in the market right now in this bear market where it's just plummeted and they need to recover, give them some encouraging words.
Yeah. I would say stay optimistic. Always invest responsibly. Educate yourself. Start with a small position. Test, kind of test the water, if you will. Dip your toe in the water. Take a small position. Continual research. Continual, checking to make sure it's going where you anticipated it going. Have a long-term mindset and try to tune out the short-term noise. Once you do that, I think you can battle harden yourself to a lot of the short-term volatility, a lot of the short-term emotion, and you can really fall back on education and really knowing what to expect because you've done the Googles. Great encouraging words, man. So thankful for you, your wisdom, all the insight that you bring to the table. Thank you for joining us on the Recovery Couch. I want everybody out there to remember to go check out my book, Step 4, A Journey Through Addiction. Recovery is across all aspects of life. We're recovering from physical training. We're recovering from financial crises. We're recovering from mental health. We're recovering from something every day. And we're going to continue to talk about those subjects right here on the Recovery Couch. That's it.